Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us, Chancellor Khosla. We're looking forward to the conversation. A lot to talk about, busy year, difficult year, and classes are starting soon. So why don't we'll kick the mic to you and have this conversation. Looking forward to it.
Well, so thank you very much, Matt. Thank you, Jeff, Gary, and everybody else. I really appreciate this opportunity to have this conversation. So Patrick is going to put up some slides. I'll talk through them, but feel free to stop me anytime. Feel free to tell me to speed up. I don't want this to be a lecture, but I'm just using some data as background, food for thought for you to think about where we are. So everybody thinks they know where UC San Diego is, as in, where we are physically. But in terms of where we are headed, well, our goal, our vision is to become a destination campus. And by that, I mean a destination for art, entertainment, and culture, in addition to education and patient care or healthcare delivery, right? Which is our primary mission. And we are actually on our way to becoming a campus of this type, a campus for the community, by the community, of the community. And we want this to be a destination for all of San Diego. So so the way I've been thinking about this, the campus transformation is happening at 3 different levels. One is intellectually, like building new programs, creating institutes, offering new degree programs, and all the good stuff that goes with that. The second is physically, where simply stated, we want to be a 4-year residential campus offering a 4-year housing guarantee. And I know you'll get to that questioning on that issue. 4-year housing guarantee for undergrads at 20% below market, and 4-year housing guarantee for PhDs at 20% below market. COVID set us back a little bit, but nonetheless, that's where we are headed. So new buildings for housing, new buildings for academics, and all the good stuff. And culturally, as in changing the way we think about running the university, not as a bureaucracy, but more as an action-oriented entrepreneurial activity where people are empowered to take action and people are empowered to make changes. Okay, next one. So what does this mean? So if you look at our undergraduate population, and I know there's been a lot of press on this issue, this is since 2013, we have grown like 29% undergrads. We have grown like 94% in applications. And in a later slide, you will see since 2012, we've grown like 40% in undergrads. So this growth is primarily forced by, in my mind, 2 thoughts. One is just improving access for Californians to the UC system. And when Californians think about the UC system, they basically, most people think about Berkeley, LA, San Diego as the places to go to. Even though today you will see in the rankings in the US News and World Report, all 10 campuses are ranked spectacularly given their youthfulness or given their age. And during this time, and the other part is Sacramento has really encouraged expanding access to California residents. So that's what this is all about. And because of this, we actually have been investing in our faculty, advising, student services, academic infrastructure, and all the good stuff. And that's why you see so much growth on this campus. So those 2 are coupled in some sense. Next one. So, okay, let's just talk about some of our successes. When I got here, our 4-year graduation rate was 57%. And to me, that was an unacceptable rate. That was not the rate of a top public institution. You fast forward a few years, today our rate is about 72, 74%, and our goal is to get 75%. And for a large public institution, that now is a very good graduation rate. In fact, left to me, I would still push on making it more closer towards 80%, a 4-year graduation rate. And if you can then see that our first generation Pell Grants and underrepresented groups, we are trying to close the gap. So many institutions have very high rates for non-minorities, but then when it comes to minorities Pell Grants, there's a large disparity. That disparity existed even here, and we are working really hard to close the gap, because that, in my mind, is a real key to social mobility, where the gap is closed. And the strategy we are using is something we call collective impact, which is a more sophisticated way of saying collaborate across multiple strategies, collaborate across them to really change the graduation rates. Okay, next one. So I'm going to go through fast, but feel free to stop me.
Yeah, Pradeep, what on that last slide? What is
Yeah.
URG? Just that last.
Underrepresented groups.
Got it. It's an important.
So that is
acronym.
new nomenclature for underrepresented minorities, right?
Yep.
Because it's not right. Okay. So come down to fall 2021. We have not announced the real numbers yet because the OP will announce it at some point. But we can see that we are like 13 or 14% more African Americans, nearly 13% more Native Americans, and about 23% more Latino students. So we are on our way to being an HSI. We are a couple of points short, maybe like 3 percentage points short right now. We also admitted the most transfer students. And I think this is an untold part of the success story of American higher education, and especially California higher education, where the community colleges play a very important role. And because in the UC, we are mandated to take one transfer every 2 undergrads, it creates a pipeline for social mobility and upward mobility in ways that we don't see in most states. So this is a matter of pride for, first of all, for US higher education, but most importantly for California higher education and the way we have structured our higher education system and the way UC is playing a part in this. Next one. Campaign. So again, a matter of pride for UC San Diego. From 2012 to now, we have raised like 2.65 billion. This year, my goal is to hit $3 billion. And this year we finished 10 years of our campaign. Remember, we started off with 1.5. People said, oh, let's stretch it to 2 billion in 10 years. We finished that in 7 years. And in 10 years now, when the clock runs out, we would be, I'm pretty confident, exceeding $3 billion. And this, I think all of San Diego should take pride in this because a lot of this money is local, but a lot of it is also expansion from donors outside San Diego, outside California, even international. And the alumni are more engaged, even though if you look at it, it looks like our alumni giving is going down, but the number of alumni engaged is growing. So I'm very happy with the way this is going. And you can see that every year we've been breaking records in fundraising. Okay, next one. Our endowment, this is very significant. The day I walked in, 555 million. Today, it is close to $2.6 billion. And if you just imagine taking 4% out every year and then putting money in and growing, you can see there has been significant amount of money that has been added to the endowment. And this sounds like a large number, but for our 40,000 plus students, this is not that large a number. So on a per student basis, 2.6 billion is a small endowment, but way better than the $500 million that we had before. And it's it's kind of half of UCLA and Berkeley, but I think this is showing momentum of this campus. I mean, this campus has very significant momentum right now. Next one. Sponsored research in, again, 9 years, we've added $500 million. Now, just to give you some context, 90% of the universities in this country that would be R1 universities have probably less than $500 million in research. What I'm saying is we have added more in the last 9 years than most universities have as their total research budget. And just about every one of them is way older than we are. Again, talks to the quality of our faculty, the quality of collaboration, building new programs. I can go down the list and talk about how great a program we have and how great our faculty are, but this is what this is all about. Also in this portfolio, there's been significant diversification. Industry money has more than doubled. We were NIH and NSF heavy, we still are, but I'm also trying to make it more DOD, NASA, DOE, and other agencies, because this time around, the budgets are going up significantly, and we want to be diversified in our portfolio of research activities. It also leads to different types of research, by the way. So next one. Student access and success. And this is where, so this slide now is from 2012. So since 2012, it's 40% up in undergrads, but really 124% up in African-American, 87% in Latino students. You can see that we are actually making progress. And we also have this program that I personally take pride in, which is Chancellor's Associate Scholarship Program, where 1,000 students are guaranteed loan-free education on this campus every year. So at any time, there are 1,000 students coming from primarily local high schools, but over the last 2 years, we've expanded this to all of California. So one key point here is that if you are a registered member of a Native American tribe in California, you are guaranteed 4 years of literally loan-free free education at UC San Diego. So this is an important program. It ties us to our Native American community and creates access opportunities that typically would not exist. And I think we might be the only campus doing this. So you can see the numbers down there in terms of headcount, in terms of the diversity of this campus. So we are close to 32,000 students right now in headcount. And this is now, so you know this better than I do, close to our LRGP. So we have to be very careful. The pressure to expand stays, but we are close to our LRGP now. So we have to balance this very carefully and make sure that we're not expanding so much more that we cannot manage the growth of our students. Okay, next one. Faculty diversity also. So we are not just diversifying the student body, we're diversifying our staff body, and we're diversifying our faculty body. And again, you can see the numbers that we are really proud of. Multiple programs have been implemented that respect the laws and the laws of California, while making sure that we're also becoming more inclusive and diverse campus. Next one. Campus housing, a burning issue. So here's the deal. Remember I talked about 4-year housing guarantee for undergrads? So when we started, we were at 1 year, then we became 2 years. And unfortunately, technically speaking, we're back to 1 year today. So in the last 9 years, we added like 3,500 graduate beds and 2,000 undergraduate beds. But thanks to COVID, the 2,000 undergraduate beds just evaporated because we removed all the triples for safety purposes. And now that we have removed them, they're not coming back. So now we are like 1,400 students short of a 2-year guarantee. But long story short, 8th College, the theater district, the tall crane that is on campus right now, that's going to be a complex of 5 buildings, 2,000 students. And then we're going to have a couple of other developments building another 2,000 more beds, maybe like 4,000 more beds over the next 5 years. So we are headed towards like really building this campus. We are about 18,000 beds right now. My view is for 40,000 students, we need, or 42,000, we need about 30-ish thousand beds to offer these 4-year guarantees, right? And we want to make sure that these guarantees stay below the market. And the market, when I talk about the market, it's not just La Jolla. La Jolla is part of it. So is Mira Mesa, so is Kearney Mesa, so is Hillcrest. So I'm defining the market to be much wider and broader than just this local La Jolla area, okay? So theater district, that's the crane you see. So now if you look, back. So our students, like I said, we are 1,400 short on undergrads right now for a 2-year guarantee. We are 8,500 short if I wanted to create a 4-year guarantee, because not everybody, remember, not everybody wants to live on campus. So we think about out of 32,000, about 20-some thousand students who don't live on campus, maybe 22,000. So that's where these numbers come from. On the graduate student side, we have 5,300 students on campus right now. And remember, this includes the 3,500 new beds that did not exist until like 3 years ago. Between the last 3 years, we've added 3,500 beds. So if you look at the housing market outside, because of COVID, it's gone crazy. But we are still, our rentals are way below market right now. And like I said, the market is very broadly defined. It's not just La Jolla. Okay, one after. COVID response, our campus did really well. And I know that all of you were covering this and watching what the campus was doing, not just our campus, but what every campus was doing. So we collaborated with Tijuana in Mexico on the south of our border. Our vaccination rates were really high. We were the leaders in providing vaccinations, building tents. So I cannot tell you how proud I am of the collaboration we had with the city and the county. And this fits my model of a public institution is not just for education and research. A public institution has roles beyond just education and research, which is also being a big a public element of this larger community, right? So that's where this whole notion of destination comes in. Okay, next one. By the way, I don't know if we ever made a big deal out of this, but we were recognized by ACE, which is the American Council on Education. It's a national body. They give 2 awards every year, one to a campus less than 10,000 students and the other to greater than 10,000. So we were in that greater than 10,000 category. It's called the Fidelity Investments Award for Institutional Transformation. So they really looked at what we had done in terms of managing the COVID pandemic on campus, managing student living, faculty, and all the good stuff, right? Innovations included, for example, California Notified. We were the campus that took the state software program and that really expanded it, integrated it, and handed it out to everybody else. So this is now the basis for, in California, for keeping track or doing tracing, wastewater testing. This to the left is a vending machine, by the way. A simple idea, but this actually gained a lot of publicity. But most importantly, it really empowered our students to be testing themselves or doing self-swabbing and really made everything very easy and seamless. So this was really the key. I mean, such a simple idea made such a big difference. Down there is the wastewater sampler that was designed here and built here, as in not the whole thing, but enhancements to existing samplers. Okay, next one.
Wait, so Pradeep,
Yeah.
so you guys, you've got the vending machine. I can go there and buy a test kit?
Yeah, it's free.
That's free. That's brilliant. How come we don't have those on every street corner? That's really an amazing.
Because so we assemble these test kits, Jeff. And so right now, so it used to be free. You just punch a number, just something shows up.
Right.
Now you swipe your card, it says it costs $1, but it really doesn't cost $1 because we don't want people to take like 10 kits and walk away from here, right? But this kit is barcoded. You scan the bar with your cell phone, it goes into my UCSD health chart, and then the test comes back in your health chart, and that's it in like less than 24 hours, more like 12 hours. So our turnaround time is between 12 and 24. So yeah, this is actually a great innovation. And by the way, the vending machine is not a typical vending machine. I think there's some cooling in there. So it was modified a little bit for our purposes, but nonetheless, our people work with the supplier. So, okay.
So just to be clear, those testing kits, you would have to have some sort of connection to UCSD. You couldn't just come on campus and get one, right?
No, you could come on campus and get one. It could even, and if you put it in the box, it might even be tested, but we would not know where to put the result.
Exactly.
Because it's barcode.
Right. Unless you have the My UCSD app.
Exactly. Or you have to be on my UCSD chart, right? And this, right. D1, I can tell you, even in spite of the pandemic, during the pandemic, we are on our way to being D1. The record with our sports teams was really good. And unlike other places, our sports team were all, and the AD and the coaches were great collaborators in keeping everybody safe on campus. So safety was priority 1, and then playing was the next priority. So we are on our way to being D1. There's a lot of excitement about this on campus, and I'm sure you're going to hear more about this later. Next one. Okay, so now several construction projects have already happened. So I'm just talking about the new ones that are opening up right now. Up at the top is the Design Innovation Building. And the little red spot there is this light rail coming to town, right? And the vertical is the elevator shaft. So when so this Design Innovation Building has an entrepreneurship lab at the bottom, which is called the basement. About 100 teams can be running entrepreneurial programs. Above that, second floor is a maker lab. Third floor is a design lab. And fourth floor is the Institute for Design and Entrepreneurship and Innovation. So integrated strategy. And this same building or similar building is reflected at Park and Market, which is right below it, which is going to open fall 21, around the same time as this building. And that also would have arts, entertainment, culture, entrepreneurship, and education programs. So this Park and Market is our strategy of projecting ourselves into the community. So Park and Market, at least in our view, being the edge of the underserved or the beginning of the underserved community. So we are excited. It's a significant investment for us, but I think it is actually important for UC San Diego, and also important for San Diego, to be honest, to have something like that. When people are thinking about converting downtown to high-tech entrepreneurial centers, you cannot do that without UC San Diego's presence, or UC San Diego should not be absent. I can look at it both ways, right? Okay, at the top is the light rail. It's coming to town. And by the way, I don't know if you've done this. I just had my first VIP ride, like literally 4 days ago with Ron Roberts. The view from nearly a couple of 100 feet above the ground, or whatever feet above the ground, or like maybe 50 feet or so, is unbelievable. You see San Diego in ways that you have not seen San Diego. So we are going to have November 20th is going to be, November 21 is the opening. Sorry, 21st of November is the opening of this line to the public. 20th of November, we're going to have VIP for UC San Diego folks. So if you've not done this, you should do this. Right next to it is the amphitheater, 3,500-person amphitheater with state-of-the-art shell, complementing what's happening on the Embarcadero. But this is exactly when you step down from that elevator shaft, this amphitheater is what you see. So now just imagine this. You step down from the elevator shaft, you walk on this Stewart collection called the Concordance. It's an Anne Hamilton piece. But looking in front of you, you see the amphitheater, and look at behind that amphitheater, you see these buildings with little graffiti. So you're going to see African-American art, Latino art, Native American art. You're going to see pop art that reflects the culture of the student body. So you will walk on an elite piece and see pop art, and a little bit of who you are will be reflected right when you come to campus. So this is very different from the campus of which Stewart Collection was the only collection and the Matter of Pride, because now the Matter of Pride is Stewart Collection and a broad range of artistic pieces that we're going to commission for our campus. Villa La Jolla Innovation Center, it's right where Rock Bottom used to be, is going to be replaced by this building. And this is going to have our doctors, and our UCSD extension is going to be in there. So UCSD extension that exists on Torrey Pines Road is going to go away. You know, those Quonset Hertz, so that's going away right below Marshall College, and it's going to be in here. Then Park and Market I talked about, which is also UCSD extension. Right next to it is Franklin Antonio Hall, $200 million project to develop collaborative spaces between engineering and the rest of the campus. MCTF building, so you can see that building is sealed off right now. So this is a building which had no walls, which used to be one of the two buildings that we kept. The other building was demolished, and that's being refurbished. So this building is significant because this is probably the only building which has seawater coming into it. So any lab that needs fresh seawater for the lab, so this is where that lab is going to be. And the last but not the least is that single crane that you see is a theater district living and learning neighborhood. It's going to completely transform the theater district. So what I'm trying to do, if you can imagine this, I used to call our campus as a bedroom community inside a bedroom community, but now we target state-of-the-art restaurants and cafeterias, the amphitheater, the art, the entertainment, and the culture. I want us to become a little city or a little town, happening town inside a bedroom community, where the community would be coming to this place, even for like eating out, for example. So we're going to have some spectacular restaurants on our campus. Okay, next one, please. By the way, the Torrey Pines Living and Learning has 5 different restaurants in addition to 3 cafeterias. A whole bunch of new programs have been created. I'm not going to go down this list, but each and every one of these programs is really bringing the campus together and really making us a more intellectually exciting place. And programs, for example, robotics, for example, like design, that should have existed here 10 years ago, but were never here, are now part of this campus. Programs like the Maker Studio, Institute for Practical Ethics. So we have programs spanning the whole range of activities that we do. Next one, Patrick. UC San Diego Health. You're already seeing the transformation on our La Jolla campus. Hillcrest has been kind of left behind, but over the next 10 years, we're going to reconstruct 34 of those 36 buildings. This whole campus is going to be rethought with a new investment, anywhere from $2.5 to $3 billion of investment on this campus. And this is going to be a brand new Hillcrest with a brand new outpatient pavilion, a new hospital, a multi-purpose building, parking, wellness center. Most significantly, on the top left of that picture, you see residential towers. We're going to build housing there for our residents, for our doctors, for our nurses. And the housing is going to have various strata of housing. It's going to be affordable, but affordable not in the sense of what the city says is affordable, but affordable for our people, as in people who work on this, all strata of people, starting from the lowest paid to the highest paid, we would have housing units there. This, by the way, we have briefed just about the Hillcrest community broadly and very deeply. And I cannot tell you how much excitement there is for this campus. This is going to fundamentally change the care we provide in Hillcrest. It's going to have like a cancer clinic. It's going to have multiple clinics that don't exist out there, in addition to strengthening clinics like the HIV/AIDS clinic, which we are known for, that exist out there. So we are really excited about this. One of the challenges of this is going to be building a new hospital while leaving a functioning hospital, because remember, there are no new net beds out here. So I don't have any accrual of revenues. That's why this outpatient pavilion is so important, to start generating a revenue base. And the residential facility is important to start generating a revenue base to invest into the infrastructure out here, and the rest would be borrowed. So there'll be like investments from money that we're making here, borrowing, and fundraising. So, by the way, this outpatient pavilion, I'm going to the regions, I think at the end of this month, to get it approved. So I'm excited about this. So at the bottom, you see a conceptual drawing, or a conceptual picture, what this outpatient pavilion is going to look like. Next one, please. So after everything is said and done, and like last year, so this year we're about a $6.5 billion total revenue institution, 1.5 of sponsored research, 11.5 of economic impact on San Diego County, 16.5 in California. So long story short, this is a slide that captures the role of a public university in multiple dimensions: creating jobs, creating economic wealth, reducing disparity, and really building the state and making this a very strong state, and especially a strong San Diego County and a San Diego City, right? So this is, I'm just going to stop here. I just want to leave most of our time for the rest of the time for a Q&A and just a conversation about what do you think we could be doing more, doing better, doing less, issues that you hear out there, concerns that we can address. Let's see what happened in the chat.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yeah, Gary, go for it.
Hi. So the university's had a series of long-range development plans, and the projected enrollment has usually occurred long before expected. And that seems to be the situation now. The university has just over 40,000 students if you include medical students. The long-range plan calls for 42,400 by 2035. But there's a good chance at the current rate of growth that you'll be there within 2 to 3 years. I was wondering if you think that there is a capacity for main campus, that you shouldn't go beyond 44 or 45, because if you do, it could hurt the quality of education. Right. I know you're under great pressure to continue to add. The legislature is doing it in the regions, but what do you think? Is there a number?
So clearly there is a number, right? I know that 100,000 is way beyond our capacity. 30,000 is way on less than our capacity. So there is a number, right? I just don't know exactly what that number is. So I think 42, 45, maybe 50 at most at some point over the next decade or plus. But I would say like 42 in my mind seemed like a right number. When we were doing the LRGP, that seemed just about right to me. 32 undergrads, 10 graduates, right? Like you're saying, we are there. So we have to contain our growth. And we are working really hard to contain our growth. And I'll tell you what's going to help us is, as you see other UC campuses being recognized in the country and coming up in ranking, it's really going to help us. Our problem was that community and the parents basically thought of Berkeley, LA, San Diego as the 3 campuses where everybody had to go. And that's just not the way it can be. Every campus is part of this great UC system, and every campus and people should be open to going to other campuses. So that's one thing. Secondly, we could grow a little bit more if we were to think more in terms of online education, using the summer for education programs. We are not there yet. We have not had that conversation with our faculty. We've not had the conversation amongst the regions, but we really need to think about using our infrastructure more efficiently and more effectively.
I'm not understanding the control the growth, because you've been growing by such large numbers each year. Even in the pandemic, you added 850 students.
Right.
Past 2 years, 1,700. If you're under all these pressures, how are you not going to get to 44,000 or 45,000 in 3-4 years? And doesn't it push you to what you just mentioned, that you could be a campus of 50,000 students within 10 years?
I can actually imagine we could be a campus of 50,000 students, but we are not going to go there without due thought process. I can also imagine that we could, for example, create a satellite campus somewhere else in San Diego, like South, right? But again, this is a complicated conversation that has to start in Sacramento with the regions, with the office of the president, with the multiple campuses. Look, there's clearly a pressure to grow. You saw, I don't know if you've seen the ruling where UC Berkeley, basically they're under pressure to grow. UCLA, they're under pressure to grow. So clearly there is pressure to grow. And I think we all see growth as negative, but I'm not looking at growth as negative, because you basically argue that you're growing, can you maintain the student quality and the quality of education? Whereas the counterexample to what you're saying is we have grown in the last 8 years and our rankings have only gotten better. Our graduation rates have gotten better. So even if I don't know exactly, or you people might think I don't know what I'm doing, the answer is whatever we are doing is right.
So you don't
So
have enough, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you don't have enough room to house your students. There's still 2,000 students that are on waiting lists for a fall quarter that begins just in over a week. The theater district project won't be done next fall, it'll be the fall after that, but you're scheduled to grow next fall too. So while the reputation of the university is extraordinary, when do you get to a point where the growth overwhelms the quality of life and academics for students?
so great question to ask. There is that point. What I'm trying to tell you is, if you think the point is right now, I would disagree with that. If you think the point is at 60,000 students, I would agree with that. What I don't know, is it 44, 45, 47? So we are monitoring that. And we are pushing back on both Sacramento and OP to basically say that we should not be growing this aggressively, right? So yeah. So on one hand, we should be proud that they think this is a campus that should grow. But on the other hand, my concern is my infrastructure has lagged growth. And that is my problem. I need time for infrastructure to catch up before we grow more.
Chancellor, can I ask you a question about COVID-19? You wrote an essay for us about a month ago.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate you doing that. In there, you had talked about, I won't repeat the exact numbers, but how your vaccination rate was much lower during the second wave during the winter than it was for the city or the region as a whole. What is your vaccination rate now?
No, not vaccination rate, Matthew. It was infection rate. Positive.
I'm sorry. I
Right?
need another cup of coffee. The infection
That's
rate,
okay.
correct.
I had
Yeah,
three.
so the infection rate was much lower. So are
Right.
you expecting something similar? Where do mandatory vaccinations
Okay.
play into this?
So let's see. So our move-in process started like 10, 11, 12, right? Last 3 days. This is the fourth day of move-in. The numbers as of last night, we had about 2,400 students move in and only 4 were detected positive. This is like Berkeley's positivity was 0.3%. This is like 0.1%. So look, this is no credit to us, okay? This is credit to these young men and women, our students who basically have been taking care of themselves. So I am confident that if they continue to exhibit the behavior they did, we would again be a much safer location than outside of our campus. And by the way, this is important because remember, and we might actually forget, when the pandemic started and we had close to like 10,000 students on campus, the community was afraid that these quote unquote students were gonna now infect everybody and go to parties and really be a problem. But they showed exactly the opposite. The outcome was exactly the opposite of what the community's fears were.
Do you expect that to be different this semester, though? People were cooped up for 18 months and students are students.
I think it's going to be the same. Just walk anytime on campus. And actually in the middle of the pandemic, Gary walked on our campus and he sent me a picture of everybody was behaving really well, masked completely. And we had like social programs. We had like programs to incentivize and encourage behavior modification. We would give like our Triton Health ambassadors, 400 of them walk around, and they'd give you a $5 Starbucks card if they saw you with a mask randomly. Not everybody got it, but there were all of these programs that were meant to kind of send positive feedback signals to our students for their good behavior. And they really, really took care of themselves. And then our wastewater monitoring was very significant because we had surveillance systems that hardly anybody did. We could see if a building would turn positive, and we would test everybody overnight.
And my last question on this before I kick the mic over to fellow board members, but I'm wondering how the Delta variant and subsequent variants, I mean, people are already up the Greek alphabet to Mu. Are you especially worried about the Delta variant? What have you done in light of its emergence?
So Delta variant, clearly has a higher transmissivity rate and higher infectivity and much deeper infections, right? But having said that, double vaccinated people and their likelihood of hospitalization or death is like the vaccinations protect you even against the Delta variant, right? And literally last evening, I was talking to somebody who leads Arizona's health, who was our Surgeon General before that. And his view was there is no variant right now, which is not where the vaccines are not protective. At least right now, we don't have those variants. But I can imagine if a large fraction of our population doesn't take precautions, does not get vaccinated, the mutations could happen. But right now, they don't exist from what I can tell or from what I've been told.
I'd like to ask another student body question. The letters that we receive from the community, the really only complaint we get about UCSD regards foreign student enrollment.
Right.
And so I wanted to get into those numbers. Full disclosure, I taught at UCSD for 20 years. And when I first started teaching, I would have maybe 1 or 2 students in my class from another country. By the time I ended teaching there, we were getting up to 10 or 15 students, and it became a large percentage of the class.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, what is the ratio on the campus, and what are the goals, and how do you explain to people who complain that any foreign student is taking a seat away from a California citizen?
Right. So let's see if I can answer this. The ratio of foreign students to California residents is pretty much fixed. On our campus, the regions have fixed that ratio, or the state has, at 22.5%, something between 22 and 23%. I don't know the exact decimal point, right? It's in that range. And every time, if we go above the range, which every so often we go by like 10, 20, 30 students, then we have to take the differential of that tuition of what we get from resident to foreign and give it back to OP. And then OP uses that to send it to some other campuses to kind of level the playing field a little bit. So what I'm saying is we are penalized. So it doesn't help us to bring more than that ratio. That is the ratio. Now, having said that, when you walk around, I mean, we do have a large Asian student population, and clearly I can see people thinking there are a lot of foreign students, but remember, California as a state has the largest Asian population in the country, if I'm not mistaken, as a percentage of the population. And you don't know if they're US citizens or not. Most likely they're all US citizens, but somehow they might, when you walk here and you see like every second student is Asian, you think we have half our campus is Asian, which may be of Asian origin, but not necessarily foreign students.
As a University of Hawaii graduate, Hawaii has a far higher percentage of Asian students than California does.
Yeah.
I'm talking specifically about students from other nations, not their.
No, so we are limited to between 22 and 23%, and foreign student is defined anybody not Californian.
Right.
Okay, so somebody from Pennsylvania, out of state, is treated in the same category. So we all call them out of state students.
But again, I'll ask the question again regarding people who complain that any out-of-state or foreign student is taking a seat away from a California resident. How do you answer to that question? The argument they make is, well, they pay a lot more money to go there. And I realize that, is that some incentive at all, that the out-of-state students and the foreign students pay so much more to attend the school?
So I think, and I think what we've not done is maybe not articulated how the budgets work. We are given, so like this year, our state budget might be like, okay, if you look at in fiscal 2020, we got 325 million from the state. So the state gives us approximately, I'm about to say like 9,000. We can give you more accurate numbers. You can get it from OP per student. You can divide one by the other, and you can tell how many students are funded by the state. Anybody above that is not funded by the state. And those are these out-of-state students that pay 3x the tuition, right? So let me explain some financials, if I may. The faculty salaries at UC San Diego, and let's just pick Stanford or USC, a private institution, may be different by 10% or so, but they are not by a factor of 2 or 3 difference. But the tuition is a factor of 4 different. For $13,000 here, you're at like 50-some thousand in a private institution. So the way it works is you have to make up, so our expenses are nearly the same as a private institution. Our tuition is 1/4. So you ask yourself, how do these budgets get balanced? They get balanced by partly having more students and partly having out-of-state students who pay more. So you don't want 6x the number of students as, let's say, a private institution. So you can say, I'll get like 3 times the student body, but I would have 1/4 of that to be out of state. So there is a method to this madness, which is how you maintain the quality, keep the cost down, and don't burden the state enough. This is because the state used to fund UCs completely. It is like 20 some years ago when you all went to college, but that's not been the case for a long time now.
6 years ago, the auditor of the state of California put out a report that said that UC jacked up international student missions specifically because of budget reasons, because it refused to tighten its belt during the recession in 2008. The UC now has far more people who are non-teachers than, who are bureaucrats than non-teachers, completely unlike CSU. What do you say to the critique that UC has just never done the belt tightening that you would expect a responsible institution to do during tough fiscal times?
So, I cannot talk for all of UC because I don't see all the campuses numbers, but I can tell you that if you look at UC San Diego, if you look at our salaries for non-teachers, if you look at what I call the administration, we've kept our belt significantly tight. And I've been expanding our faculty by 100, 120 every 3 years. And I'm very hawkish on not expanding the administration.
Chancellor,
I can share all those numbers with you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead and finish.
No, I was going to say, I'm happy to share the numbers with you. We can have our people give you the numbers of the staff and the faculty and please.
I want to go back to the diversity issue, but I want to ask about your administration and your faculty because I was in education for many years at City College, and that was always a big concern about the number of part-time adjunct faculty versus the full-time professors, the
Right.
ratio of professors of color. So I wanted to ask you, what are you doing specifically to try to make sure that it is even across the board there with the numbers of faculty of color and administrators? And I'm really happy and proud to say that former Vice Chancellor Juan Gonzalez was actually one of my mentors when I was in
Right.
college many moons ago. But I know he left. So that kind of makes me wonder, how do you recruit and try to retain and
Right. So, I mean, look, people come and people go. So we try to retain everybody. One, his wife, just in that particular case, I don't know if you want to talk about, since this is recorded, I'm not going to talk about that particular case, but there was personal reasons he left. So if you look at the administration right now, my cabinet, 10 out of 17 are women. We have people of color. We have people who belong to communities like LGBT communities. So we have a well-represented, diverse cabinet. If you look at our deans, we had on the academic side, the divisional deans, we had 0 women deans 9 years ago when I got here. We have 6 deans now who are women, 2 are women of color. So we are aggressively diversifying, not because we have any quotas, but we insist on a broad, diverse pool coming in for interviews and also being in the final stages of the interview, so that there is, when you look at the excellence of the final set of candidates, there's diversity in those candidates, and then the hiring authority gets to choose. See, I'm not the only hiring authority on this campus. I mean, we have hiring authorities that are distributed from me on down to the first level manager, right? So we are trying to tell everybody, your pools have to be diverse, your finalist has to be diverse. There are diversity equity advisors who have to be part of it, diversity training, subconscious bias training has to be part of the hiring process. So slowly but steadily, we are just changing the way people think about hiring. And it's making a difference.
I know that some students are interested in leaving District 1 in San Diego City Council to join a different district. Do you have a stance on that?
I don't. I heard about this just like literally over the weekend, right? So this was not that the AS body discussed with me. But you know what? People have their own mind. This is a free country. People should express their will, and we'll see where it goes.
Would it affect UCSD in any way if that were to happen?
I don't think so, because UCSD doesn't belong to a district or two. UCSD belongs to the state, to the country, to the county. So I don't see ourselves as being represented by 1 or 2 congressmen, or we are in somebody's district, so the students who live there vote there. But as an institution, we are represented by everybody in the state. So.
Can I ask a question about online education?
Yes, sir.
So you said a few moments ago that you haven't had the conversation yet with your faculty about online classes, but UC San Diego played a role in developing the internet and social media and streaming and the chips at Qualcomm, and it has all these Gen Z kids coming through the door who don't even use email. How is it that the university is not further along in making a transition to having some of its 4-credit degree-oriented classes online or a significant other? Because a lot of universities nationally are doing this, but UC San Diego has seemed to oppose it.
I know they are. And I think one thing that is not well known, the curriculum and the mode of delivery is completely the authority of the academic senate. So I can only be the instigator causing a conversation. There, the decision-making is completely the academic senates and the individual faculty members. And so this is what we think in terms of shared governance. So it has to be these conversations take much longer than they would, for example, at Arizona State.
But students and their parents are complaining about the cost of education growing so rapidly. Do you have any sense of why the faculty, I mean, you're part of the faculty as well, even as chancellor. Do you have a sense of why they haven't moved? Because
Look, I don't know if I have a complete sense with 100% guarantee, but I think the fundamental of the thought is that people still don't have confidence in the quality of online courses being equivalent to or nearly the same as in-person education. And I think if there's one thing this pandemic has done, is shown us that even if they are not exactly the same as in person, they are what is called satisficing, as in they're good enough to really help us with the educational outcomes. And I think we need a little bit more work done on understanding the educational outcomes of the students and the experience now. So now that we have this pandemic experience, I can tell you people would be more would be more open to online. So there's a difference, Gary, also between online courses. So right now in a course, a faculty member can have 30% online component without any academic senate input, but 100% online course requires an academic senate authorization. So I can see that. but 100% degree program being online also requires, so just because every course in the degree program is authorized to be online does not make the degree program authorized to be online. Is this kind of making sense?
Yeah.
So that also requires academic senate authorization, right? So, I mean, look, it's a built-in feedback process of quality control. And if there's one reason the UC is the best public institution in the country, it is this reason, which somebody might call bureaucracy, but on the other hand, it's automatic quality control. There's a lot of people, eyes and brains working on this. So
I don't want to miss an
agree.
opportunity.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry. I don't want to miss an opportunity because time is tight. Do you personally believe that the University of California, San Diego should push for a branch campus in South County, particularly on that land available in Chula Vista? Given what you're thinking about as you see the university grow and San Diego State talking about the need to add 15,000 of its own students, what do you think?
So I think that if we do have to expand beyond the capacity that can be adequately supported by this physical location we have, we should consider those options. But I have to think through, what does it mean to be a branch campus? We cannot replicate the complete infrastructure on the other side. So we have to think very differently about what an extension campus would look like. It cannot be just replicate everything, because that's not going to happen. The state doesn't have enough resources. It cannot be just do the first year out there and come here. So the faculty, the academic senate and the faculty have to be very deeply involved in this conversation, because without their support, without their buy-in, without their input, this is not going to be, we will not be able to do the right thing.
I take it
I wanna
that.
ask you- Go ahead, Chris.
No, it was a dumb food question. Someone has a more serious question. Go
Yeah,
for
I
it.
actually have a question about
A non-food-
diversity
a
of the
non-food
student
question.
body. Let me ask you a question about the diversity of the student body. We talked about academics, but
Yep.
you showed some statistics that, show 13% more blacks,
Right.
more black students this year, 12 Native students, 23% more Latinx students. I guess it's a twofold question. We published an essay about a year ago that said one of the reasons there are not more black students is because there are so few, and that you need a larger black student body to appeal to black students. So I guess, are you growing fast enough, and specifically on becoming a Hispanic serving institution? That's obviously a big threshold. I just cycled off as national president of the Society of Professional Journalists, and we are specifically targeting HSIs and historically black college and universities, tribal schools, schools with high concentrations of Asian students, so that we can have a more diverse set of journalists, who feel like there's a place in this industry for them. How do you make it so that UCSD is seen among those folks as a place that, they might consider? And are you growing fast enough? Those are percentages that don't look bad, but 10% of 200 is a small number, right? So I'm just throwing a number out there.
No, I get it. So look, one can never grow fast enough and one can never be diverse enough, okay? So that is a given statement. So am I growing fast enough to be as diverse as I want to be? The answer is no. It's because diversity, to reflect the student body to reflect the state and the country is a tall order. Now, having said that, we are growing faster than people think we are growing. So I'll give you an example. 2012, we are like 1.7, 1.8% African-American students on campus. 2021 coming up now, once the numbers come out, you will see that will be close to 3%. So you might say, wait a second, from 1.8% to 3% is only 1.2%. Well, granted that, but it's actually 60-some% increase. So we are growing faster than the student body is growing. The student body I showed you grew at 40% over the last 9 years. The underrepresented groups grew at 100% over the last 9 years. So we are getting better at this every day, but clearly not fast enough. And maybe we could be faster, but we do have to do this within the realms or within the confines of California law.
Quick follow-up on HSI, when do you expect to become an HSI?
So I think this year we might be between 21% or so. I'm hoping over the next 3 to 4 years, we would be HSI. And again, we are making sure that as we grow our Latino population, grow our African-American population, we're also building the infrastructure to support students who are coming from diverse and many from low-income backgrounds, because their experience of studying, their experience of attending in-person classes is very different than somebody coming from high-income backgrounds, right? So we are also growing our Pell student population. So I'm building that infrastructure, which is based around the Teaching and Learning Center. We've invested significant resources in that area. So those resources, by the way, I count them as academic resources and not as bureaucracy, because they're not pushing paper. They're actually helping students learn and graduate faster.
Another student body question. You look at the numbers from Forbes and the ranking from Forbes and the ranking from U.S. News and World Report and the Princeton Review. The school obviously gets incredibly high grades, and yet I want to ask the school spirit sense. If someone attended a Berkeley or a UCLA, they wear it on their sleeve, and I just don't get that at UC San Diego. And I've heard it from my students as well. They just don't feel that same affinity for their own school. And I'm wondering if you guys feel that, and it's something you're working on.
Actually, clearly, Andrew, what you're saying is absolutely true. It was true when I got here. It is still true today, but less true today than 9 years ago. And part of the strategy to go D1 was exactly that. But we also have this limitation of not having a large football team, which both Berkeley and UCLA have, right? And honestly, as I look at the situation right now, not clear to me that we can create a football team from nothing overnight. So we have to find other ways of building school spirit. So I'm hoping that in D1, we could focus on basketball a little bit more. It could be the sport that brings people together. We could focus on baseball a little bit more. So clearly we need to get to building more school spirit, no doubt about it.
Pradeep, I had a question about going back to the very beginning of your slides, your vision of the role of a public university, which I thought was very impressive what you're doing. So I wanted to ask you your own journey on that thinking, because it feels to me like, wow, that's a big change for UCSD, being that community institution. And the things that I hear you talking about seem like maybe a little bit different priorities than were in place 10 years ago. And I just wanted to hear if that, am I right about that? How do you think about all of that? How did you arrive?
So I think you're right about it. I mean, look, if you look at my own record as an engineer, as a researcher, as a teacher, I was clearly more on the academic side. I won the best awards that people win at 65. I had them when I was in my late 40s, right? But when I came here, the biggest eye-opening thing for me was going around the city where I would go around. Just remember, this is after 2010, okay? I came in 2012 after a little bit of a difficult period of this institution. So as I went around the city and the county, people would talk about, you're up there on the mesa, you don't care about who we are, what we do. And I've always believed that the public institution has an obligation and a role that is slightly different and bigger than just any typical private small educational institution. And us being a large public institution, I had to, over time, think about like, what should our role be? Should it be economic development? What else should it be? So my thinking has honestly been refined. If you just look at my own briefings of the vision and the goal of this institution, they have kept on incrementally expanding our role. When I started the strategic plan, it was just student-centered, research-focused, service-oriented public university. Destination was not the strategy, but as I've learned a lot more, thought a lot more about higher education, about public education, that's where the refinement has come about. I don't know if I'm right. I believe I'm right. I hope I'm right? But I'm convinced that we are doing the right things.
Yeah, super interesting. Thank you.
We're past 11. Any last question that anyone has? I appreciate your time, Chancellor.
No, I
Chancellor,
appreciate your time. I mean, there's like 6 of you out there. I just spent my 1 hour, but you spent like 15 hours. So I really appreciate your time. And thank you again for, for us being a strong newspaper in the community, for supporting all the great higher education institutions, and just being a voice of the people and voice for the institutions both.